There is probably someone in the world dying right now due to war while you are watching this video. And that is pretty sad, but that is reality. War is real, war is upon us, and war is something that we have to deal with in this reality, at least for now. So let's acknowledge the reality of this phenomenon. Now, I want to start this episode a little bit different in comparison to the other episodes in this podcast. So let's do a brief, just a couple of minutes, nothing crazy, a brief meditation for just connecting with love and empathy, kindness and compassion for the people that had died or that are hiding right now or under bombing or under attack due to the nature of war, to the conventional nature of war. So let's just close our eyes. And obviously, if you are driving, do it with your eyes open and don't go very deep. You don't want to get, into a crash, but just close your eyes and take a deep breath and just try to feel compassion, love, empathy, and kindness for all the people that is suffering or had suffered due to war. Now, continue breathing, and I want you to also expand this love, this energy to the people that had perpetuated this war or those wars. We are not only having empathy for the victims, but also for the perpetrators because they are so unconscious that they deserve also our love. Very good. Fulfill all your body with this feeling of empathy. Fulfill all your body with this feeling of compassion. Fulfill all your body with this feeling of love. And now expand this feeling into the universe. Make sure that this feeling is all around the universe, is permeating every corner, every tiny space of the universe. This is unconditional love, acceptance. This is high consciousness. Take a deep breath, and when you're ready, open your eyes. All right? Now we are ready to explore with an open-mindedness, with love, compassion, kindness, with universal acceptance. We are ready with these high values, with these spiritual, sophisticated values. We are ready now to explore what is the real, not the conventional, not the normal, not what your grandfather told you about war. No, 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 no. Not what the politicians told you about war. No, no, no. Let's talk about today. Let's discover today the real, the fundamental, the profound nature that almost no one seems to know of war. So today I decided a crazy hair day. So if you are seeing this in my YouTube channel, you can see my hair. Today I didn't fix it in any way. I just let it be. So this is my attitude today. Do you like it? Woohoo! Anyways, welcome to the episode 508 of the Mastermind podcast. This is the challenge season 2, in which all Monday through Fridays for a whole year, we are like 30% 30% done right now, so we are not that far away. But for the whole year, we are doing an episode daily, Monday through Friday, an episode that will promote a change in your life, an actualization of a new truth in your life, something that push the needle of your success, your evolution, your spiritual growth forward. So if you are into this kind of content, make sure to subscribe. Also, we have a Telegram group. The link is in the description. It's totally free, in which we are going to be communicating more deeply to follow better these ideas and to support better our collective growth. I want to mention that this subject will be a little bit controversial because when you talk about religion, politics, or war, always people will differ in opinions, and always we're gonna fight over these subjects. Not always, but at least most of the time, sadly. And my purpose of this podcast, my aim, my objective, it is not to create a fantasy about what is war, or to create an utopian view, like a best case scenario of what it is what is war or what is supposed to be war or how we can solve war problems or collateral damage that are caused by war. No, no, no. I don't want this to be a fantasy. I want this episode to be pragmatical, to be, solution focused, but at the same time, I will be giving you some of the most deepest truths, deepest insights about human nature, about spirituality, about our whole journey in this human realm, and how we can apply those teachings to solve the problem of war. So, if you're a very unconscious man or you're a very unconscious woman, you will hate this episode. You will say, "Oh my gosh, that Dr. Derek Israel, he's a dreamer. He's a fantasy man. He should be doing movies, not a podcast. He's spreading misinformation." So that is what unconscious human beings will think about this podcast. If you are not unconscious, and what by that I mean, if you meditate, if you read, if you connect with the source, with universe, with love, with God, whatever you want to call it, if you have evolved your soul, you will love this podcast. You will understand so much about war and about conflict and human nature. And also you not only going to understand, but also you are going to be placed in a position to design your contribution. And this is very important, folks. At the end of the day, this is just a contribution to try to solve war, and we are all contributing in a way. We are contributing with our opinions, we are contributing with our actions, with our content in social media or the metaverse. We are contributing by going there and fighting, or by providing arms, or by working in the military industrial complex and creating missiles, creating warplanes. We are contributing with certain actions. So, my invitation for you is to really think very deeply after this podcast or during this podcast how you will contribute to war for now on, because you will contribute in a way. And I suggest that you contribute in a conscious, lovable, kind, empathetic, or empathic way. All right, so let's go right into it. What is the definition of war, or what is the general, conventional, normal definition of war? So, what I will be providing you here is just I will describe the average opinions and perceptions of war, because I want you to analyze if you consider war something like this. If you consider war something like this, well, let me tell you, you are average, in at least in your mindset in terms of war. You haven't sophisticated a lot what really war is and how we can solve this problem. And basically, you are repeating what culture tell you, what the history books tell you, what a simple Google search tell you, and maybe that is part of your problem. And no judgment, I used to have this problem as well, but after a lot of meditation and research, I upgrade my mindset, and I have now a better perspective about war that I want to share with you to see if you can also you know expand your world view. So, um, the general definition of war is that basically is an armed conflict between groups of people that have different interests. That is basically the general definition of war. And this group of people, they may be militias. You know, militias are groups that are not official military groups of a nation, for example, but they are organized in a similar structure, or this warfare may be between nations, or they may be between human versus aliens, or they may be between tribes, tribal warfare, or they may be from collective groups of nation between collective groups versus other collective groups, like for example in the world wars. Like we don't see only one country versus another country, we see a group of countries versus another groups of conflict of countries, right? So that is basically the definition of war. We have two parties at least minimum. Well, we have two parties, and they have a conflict, they have different interests, and they decide that the best way to solve this type of um, conflict is to arm themselves and to kill the enemy. And by killing the enemy, well, you make the enemy your slave, basically. Now you have power over the enemy. And that power may be political power, military power, economical power, information power, all of those type of power. That is basically what conventional war is. Obviously, not always is armed. For example, we can have a Cold War, and experts are suggesting that right now in 2022 we are in a new Cold War between the OTAN and Russia, China, other potencies in the world. But basically, in a Cold War, we don't see uh, an armed conflict. We basically, what we see in a Cold War is a competition, is a threat of conflict, is a development of war technologies to try to intimidate, coerce the opponent. But although we don't see murder or assassinations or bombs in a Cold War, it doesn't mean that the fear is not spread, the misinformation is not spread. All of that, it is present in a Cold War. So that is basically the general definition of war. And I want to tell you what is the root of the word war. And it's very interesting just to meditate a little bit on the root of this word. And the root of the word war is to confuse. Interesting, right? To confuse. If you Google right now what means war, like in the root, it is to confuse. And also, I think that that is the root of war itself, confusion. So not only war, it is a tool for confusion, but it is caused by confusion. But hey, wait, let's go step by step. So the most important aspect that I want you to remember about this general definition of war is that It's an armed conflict between different interests. And that is the specific word that I want you to remember: interests of different groups. The interest, the desire, the attachment, the obsession of a group is always what begin a war. The interest, the effort, the aim, the desire. Okay, let's move forward. This all will make sense. Um, let's now discuss a little bit what are the conscious me sorry my hand letter is so crazy lately that I'm having so much problems. And I was thinking about it when I was reading today, when I was writing today the note for this podcast. I was telling myself, okay, write clearly, because I don't want you to not understand when you are trying to read your own letter. But well, it seems that I didn't accomplish this task. So, what are the unconscious mediums of war? This is another aspect that I want you to meditate on. And this is the most important word here: unconscious. Unconscious. So, what are the unconscious mediums of war? Well, we have a lot. So, one of the most common unconscious medium of war is invasion. Exactly what we are seeing right now in Ukraine. Um, Ukraine. I think it's Ukraine in English. Ukraine in Spanish. So in Ukraine, we are seeing this basically an invasion from the Russia military force, and this is one of the unconscious mediums of war. Like, I want this, I have the interest, I have this specific interest in mind as a group, as a nation. So I need a specific medium to accomplish this type of interest. What that medium may be? Well, let's invade, let's use the force. So, force is a medium through invasion. Also, other mediums that you can use in war is misinformation, for example. That is a huge one. That is a huge one, and we don't know about that one too much. But everything that you read in the internet related to a war, be very careful, because one of the most important wars that we fight in conflict is the misinformation war. We are trying to engineer the world opinion, because if we can misinform and convince other groups that this reality is happening, this invented reality, because it's a misinformation, if it's happening, right? Well, then other countries will join you, or other groups will join you, and they will help you. So that's why misinformation spreading is so lethal as a war weapon. This is a war weapon. A lot of Russians are accusing the Ukrainian people of doing this type of war. We know that Ukraine doesn't have the military power to um, to break the military force of Russia, but they have other tools that they can use. So Russia is saying, "Hey, these guys are spreading fake news and blah blah blah." Maybe to convince Europe, or maybe to convince the United States to help them much more, not only with sanctions and not only with economic repercussions. So that is the misinformation, and that is another unconscious medium of war, because you are basically lying. And I'm not saying that Ukraine is doing this. I'm just saying that this is a common use weapon in war. Also, what it is called psychological operations are another medium of war. Have you ever read about psyops? Well, psyops are basically psychological operations, like, for example, propaganda, stuff like that, that you can use as a weapon. Um, this is something that North Korea used a lot with their own people, with their own people. So they are always establishing propaganda strategies to make North Koreans think that they will be invaded very soon by the United States, that they are still on a war, that the United States wants them, that the United States will destroy them very soon. And this propaganda is used to do a collective manipulation in order to have the North Korean population working all day, basically all the time, into preparing for this war that they are selling. So they are always in this fight or flight state of mind. That's why we have a North Korea that is so poor economically, so poor in education, so poor in international relationships, so poor in collective consciousness, so poor in so many areas besides military force, because this is a psychological operation. And the United States has done this to his own citizens, to international citizens. This is something that is very used in the Cold Wars. It's an unconscious medium of fighting. Another unconscious medium of fighting a war is the cyber attack. We have seen Anonymous trying to fight Russian information systems, hacking information systems, and everything that is going on with the internet and the information. That is also another unconscious way that you can fight a war. Another unconscious way is with terrorism, with threats, with nuclear power, with biological arms, with chemical arms. That is known as unconventional war, when those type of weapons are used. But also, that is a very unconscious tool for fighting a war, because I have an interest. I want this. And if you don't give me that, I will stimulate a cancer on you. Oh my gosh. If that is not unconscious, what is unconsciousness, my friend? If you don't give me this, I will blow the entire town like Hiroshima with a nuclear war or a nuclear attack. What more unconscious than that? What more barbaric, archaic, primitive than that? I don't know. It's crazy, huh? But those, sadly, are mediums, unconscious mediums of war, and a lot more. This is just like the tip of the iceberg. For example, other mediums that I can think of right now is like destroying identities. That is what you want to do if you are in war. Like, if you are in war, you don't want to destroy. Think about if you're a war commander or an officer or a president of a country that is going to war. What do you really want of your enemy? You want to destroy the enemy entirely? No. That is only, that is your last resource. If you need to do it, you will do it. But you don't want to destroy everyone, because you want them to fulfill your economic and imperialist agenda. So you don't want to kill the whole enemy population. What do you want is to kill the resistance, right? The militia or the military force that is trying to prevent that invasion or that conquering. But what you really want is to destroy the identity of that group, because without identity, they don't have war morale or war cohesion or or group identity. And if you don't have group identity, you are lost. If you don't have a high morale, a profound why for what you are fighting, for why you are defending your nation, your group, your ideas, your religion, whatever, you are lost. You lost the fight. War sometimes are win or lose due to the potency of identity. Who are we as a group? So one of the things why Ukraine is holding very strongly against the military superior Russia force is because they have a very strong identity as Ukrainians. And that identity is not broken. So they are not broken, right? So if you want to destroy the identity, what is the tool that you will use? Well, you will break, destroy, you will eliminate history and art and culture and language and religion. If you take those things of a society, you break their identity, their collective identity. Art, because what is art? Dude, art is the representation of who we are. If you break the art of that group, you break the soul of that group. That is a very unconscious medium, but it is effective for unconscious war, for egoic war. If you break the culture of people, if you break their religion, what was the first thing that Spain people did to the Africans that were coming to the islands in the Caribbean when the New World was discovered, or that they were coming to America when the New World was discovered? Well, one of the first things that the Spain people or Europeans did was to break the religious identity of the Africans. So the Africans, they like to believe, in a lot of animistic things spiritually, like dancing and a lot of gods, a lot of goddess, voodoo, magic, ritual, shamanism. Remember, they were very, very primal in their practices. But what the Spain people did? No, 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 no. You need to become a Christian. What? Yes, a Christian. Only one God. Is a white God. Is a white dude with blue eyes, long hair, just like us, baby. And he's your savior. What? He's not my savior. Yes, he's your savior. Or you will die. Accept him. Okay, that is history. So you break religion, you break art, you break culture, you break identity. If you break identity, you break resistance. If you break resistance, you win the war. That is a very unconscious way to do this. Another unconscious medium is economical sanctions or economical strategies to basically destroy the capacity of a country to continue the war effort. For example, the United States did this to Cuba for a long time. They have done this to Venezuela. They have done this to Russia. They have done this to um, North Korea and other states. So the economical war is a very unconscious way of doing war. Because if you we are living in a globalized world, my friends. So if you disconnect a country for the world market, for the, if you disconnect a country from the world economy, dude, you are breaking their soul. Because it is very difficult for a country to be completely self-sufficient. That's why international market exists since forever. Because not every country have the same resources. So we need to interchange, we need to trade. And if you block those, you are basically punishing and destroying a group. They will kill each other when scarcity of resources is omnipresent. And that is a very unconscious tactic of war. So, enough of the mediums. We can speak about mediums, unconscious mediums forever. Like, you think about them. There's so much things that you can do in a war to win it. But let's continue moving forward. So, what is the superficial resolution of war? So we already fought the war, right? Now, what is the superficial, average, kind of expected resolution in a war? Well, is this one. One of the parties surrender and the other one takes all. Sometimes we realize or we make a deal of a stop of fire, a cease of fire, um, temporarily. Like, for example, United States have a ceasefire with North Korea, although the war it is not officially over, right? So sometimes that is the resolution. Sometimes the resolution is imperialism. Sometimes the resolution is uh, that the country will be completely separated from the global market and it will stay like that. Sometimes the resolution is that this territory is mine now and I will say what we will, what we will do here or what we will not do here. And basically, the final resolution of every war is a new world order, a new hierarchy between groups that determines who has the power and who has not the power. But notice how this type of resolution is very unconscious, is very archaic, and is very unfair. It just seems wrong. Why we need to have a power or a potency or a country of or a group or a religious group that have complete power over other group? Why? Well, because we are unconscious. And this is how war is fought unconsciously. And this is the resolutions that we can um, maintain. Another resolution is okay, we are not fighting anymore, but I will be creating more technological weapons in case that we fight. I will destroy you. That is another resolution. Russia and the United States has been doing that since the end of the World War II. So they are not only developing more warfare technology, but also they are trying to convince other countries to be part of my group, of my group, of my group, dividing the world, division, ego, and that is the resolution. Don't attack me because I have all these babies that will come and attack you with me. And that is a eternal tension right there. It's an eternal threat of war right there. Okay. All right. So now I explained to you just the tip of the iceberg of what is unconscious war, conventional war, and I am perfectly sure that you already knew this material. Maybe not all the words, maybe you didn't know that war was to confuse in the root word, or maybe you didn't know some details, but I am pretty sure that you kind of knew that this information, this is not something revolutionary what I discuss here. But now let's go to the real meat of this podcast, the real substance of it. And let's take a view of the same questions or the same subjects that I already discussed. What is the definition of, what is the causes of war? What are the unconscious mediums in the or and what are the resolutions? Let's take these areas and let's discuss it in a more conscious, profound, spiritual, metaphysical, and high order kind of perspective. So, this is the perspective that you will develop if you become enlightened, if you become superior in your spirit, if you become sophisticated in your worldview, if you become connected with the source of reality, if you become one with humanity, with the humankind, with the universe, something like this will be your perspective. Maybe will not be the same as mine. Obviously, I'm a human being and I have my own bias, my own culture, my own language, but something like this, very similar to this, will be your own conclusions because these conclusions are based on the fundamental spiritual truth of existence. And also, I will be giving examples of how these truths can be used in internal wars because I am talking about mostly war, international war, war between countries, or maybe a civil war. But war, we can have other type of wars. We can have spiritual war, or we can have a psychological war within ourselves, not the psychological operation that the psychological operations that I was telling you about in the um, unconscious mediums of war, but just the war that you have within yourself, the war for your evolution. So, let's start to discuss this. What are the real causes of war? What are the real, not the superficial, not the common ways of thinking? What are the real, the metaphysical, the rooted causes of war? And is this one, my friend. And open your mind, open your heart, because this is going to be huge. The real cause of war, my friend, is an immature way of expressing love. That's it. This is the real root of war. An incapacity to understand the sophistication of love and how we can express this love in a safe manner. The reason that we have wars is because we love. Love and war is the same. It is a spectrum. In one side of the spectrum, we have total peace and love, and the other side of the spectrum, we have total war and love. We have love in both, but it's the way that we express that love that separates unconscious beings of conscious or spiritual advanced beings. The whole purpose of this podcast if that is that you will walk from the unconscious way of expressing love to more conscious ways of expressing love. That is the whole aim in your life, but also if you become a politician or if you become an army officer, if you become someone that is directly involved in war, maybe you will use this information also for the benefit of preventing the war or conducting a more conscious war, if that makes any sense. So the reason why I say that war is based on love, even the unconscious one, is because why do you think that a nation have an interest? Well, they have interest because they have an ego. Not only an individual ego, but also a collective ego. Every country, every group have a collective ego, a collective identity that is self-centered and that only thinks about itself or about its own group. And it loves itself and it loves its own group. And because I love myself and I love my group, I want the best, what I think is the best. I want the best for me and for my group. So they have those things, they have those resources. And if they don't want to give me that because I love myself so much, because I love my group so much, well, we're going to take those resources by force. And that is the end of story. That is basically the beginning of a war. But notice how this beginning of a war is based on love. It's based on a very egoistical kind of love, very premature kind of love, very individualistic kind of love. But at the end of the day, is love. Love is the true nature of war. Interesting, huh? Maybe you never thought about this. But you will understand this. You will understand this if you meditate enough and you understand and you realize and you become aware that love is the modus operandi of existence. Because love is the primal drive of existence to unite itself in a complete unity again. But we have egos that do not understand this process, and we think that what is love is only what love can do for me. Very similar to couples in a relationship. They say they love each other, but really they love each other? They are constantly on war with each other. They are constantly humiliating each other, fighting with each other, and both have their own interests that they want over overimposed or imposed in the in their partner, and they say, oh, we love each other, but we know by the divorce rates, by the toxicity of most relationships, that that is not real love. That is egoistical love. They love themselves and they want someone to love themselves, but they do not love purely. They do not love with consciousness. So that is a micro example of this macro example of war. So what happened in relationships in a couple is the same that happened in war, when both groups have a very unconscious way to love, to try to unite, to try to be again one with everything. And that is the ultimate desire of a human spirit. We can confuse this superficially, we can confuse this with, you know, we are pursuing money, we are pursuing fame, we are trying to get rich, we are trying to get reputation, we are trying to get sex, we are trying to get pleasure. All of these are just superficial aims of your ego, that what really is striving forever as an spirit, not as an ego, but a spirit, what really you are striving forever is for love, for infinite love. But then your ego tell you no, it's not love, it's money. No, it's not love. What I want is sex. But that is just your ego. If you eradicate your ego through meditation, through yoga, I am not saying eradicating in a sense that you will become blank and now you don't have identity and you are staring at the stars forever without talking. No, what I'm saying is eradicating the centralization of your ego, and that you can basically decentralize your ego in a way that you can see the world entirely united as one thing, as unus mundus, as the alchemist used to say. Unus mundus, one, only one world is the definition or the translation of that. Only one world. If you can see the world through this lens, you will never do war again, because you will be seeing love as the magnificent substance, omnipresent substance that is. We can call that also God, but God without any type of definition. Because maybe you're a Muslim and now you say, oh, yes, Derek, I knew that. That's why I want Muslims to conquer the world, because we know that Allah is love, and our Allah must rule the world. Derek, you're so right. No, your Allah doesn't need to rule the world. If you want to rule your world, that's fine, man. Go with it. But doesn't have to. If I want to say it is not Allah and my love is this sticky note. This is my love, not Allah. Who are you? Who are you to come here and tell me that I need to follow Allah? Who are you, man? Who are you? And that can apply to Christians, to Buddhists, to whatever. When I'm talking about understanding real love and a real God and real union, is out of paradigms, is out of agendas. That is difficult, huh? That it may be impossible. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure this out. It may be utopic, maybe, but that is Well, I think, let me tell you what I think that what I'm suggesting is possible. It, in my thinking, it is possible because if we can do it as a human being, if someone can do it, if I can do it, and maybe you can do it, well, that means that this type of mindset can be propagated through time. I am not dumb enough to think that this will apply in the next 200 years. No, through time, maybe 1,000 years, maybe 2,000 years, because we know that evolution runs slowly and profound societal changes runs smoothly and take time, and evolution takes time, and change in a collective consciousness takes time. But maybe if I can do it and you can do it, maybe in 2,000 years, everyone will be thinking like this. Maybe, I don't know. So when I told you that war was to confuse, yes, it's to, you want to confuse your enemy in war. If you are thinking in the conventional way, but what I really think is that war, it is caused by confusion. This is the cost of war, confusion. Confusion in terms of your love. You are confused of what love is. You think that love is partial, utilitarian, and that you can put you can put love to work for you. You think that way. That's why you go to war. Because you are confused. You are confused on what is really humankind. You think that humankind, we are biological species, that we are pieces of matter that you can destroy if they don't love as you love. But that is just wrong because the human species is just one thing. So if you are killing a Chinese and you are Japanese, you are killing yourself. Oh no, I'm not killing myself, Derek, because I'm a Japanese. That is your ego, dude. Your ego is what thinks that you are Puerto Rican, Dominican, whatever, Japanese, whatever, Canadian. That is your ego. That is an identity. That is a cultural identity constructed through time, through culture. If you break that identity, you will look to a Japanese in their eyes and you will see yourself. You will look to an Arabic Muslim to his eyes and you will see yourself. You will look to a Puerto Rican as me, talking a very weird English as me, and you will look at me to my eyes and you will see yourself. That is a mature love and understanding and capacity. But how many people will believe me? Do you think that Vladimir Putin will believe me? Do you think that Biden, hey, President Biden, man, just remove all your nuclear, weapons from the United States and, remove those sanctions for, to Russia, remove all military operation in Afghanistan, because at the end of the day, Biden, you are me, we are all one, we are all love, we are all dancing with God in this wonderful experience that we call life. And you are so immature to hold this type of military operations for your economical interest. Can you please do this? Do you think that that will work with Biden or with any other president or leader in any other country? Probably not. Maybe some of them. Definitely, we have some leaders in our world that are more conscious than others. But with Biden or with Putin or with Kim, I think that Kim is the name of the North Korean one, or whatever, or Maduro in Venezuela, or I don't know. Do you think that that will work? No. Why? Why will that not work? Well, because those guys are so unconscious, dude. How many times you have been a photo of Vladimir? Have you seen a photo of Vladimir Putin meditating? How many times? Never, right? Maybe you have seen one, but I never. How many times you have been a photo of? Have you seen a photo of? I don't know, Biden or Donald Trump doing yoga or Reiki or Kundalini or Pranayama or really studying mysticism, occultism, esoteric practices, compassion. How many times you have seen the leader of your country going to a Buddhist seminar or a Buddhist retreat to meditate over what is consciousness, what is the mind, what is love, what is compassion, what is kindness, what is empathy, what is existence, what is reality? How many times? Never. And you know what is the sad thing about this? That every politician is a reflection of the country. And this is another truth that is hard to swallow. Most people will say, oh, maybe you're Russian, and you will say, no, 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 no. Vladimir Putin, it is not a reflection of myself. Well, you elected him. Your country, the collective consciousness of your country, put it put it him in power. Yes, I know that sometimes they are corrupt and they do some tricks, but you can always destroy a president if you want. You can always do like a rebellion. That is something that you can do. If you don't do that, well, you are perpetuating that power leadership. And this comes from a guy, from a doctor, from a human being, whatever you can call me, that comes from a country that is still a colony. And I know that we are still a colony and we are still dependent on other forces like the United States because that is just a reflection of our individual natures. And it is a hard truth to swallow in Puerto Rico, but it's reality. Every politician is a reflection of their countrymen and women. And if the country don't meditate, if the group is not advanced, if the group do not sophisticate itself periodically, systematically with high consciousness techniques, as I teach you here and other masters teach you, well, we have war and we have a very stupid leadership in politics, right? So, what are then conscious mediums to prevent war or to at least fight war with more love and with more spiritual gain if it is an internal war that you are fighting with yourself? Well, look at these other conscious mediums. Instead of using weapons, planes, tanks, infantry, bombs, nuclear weapons, cyber attacks, terrorism, psychological operations, misinformation, economical sanctions, instead of using those mediums unconscious that I already told you, what if we use, for example, let's see, empathy? It is that a conscious medium to prevent war? What do you think? I think so. Why I think so? Well, what do you think will happen if every country, every group will start to cultivate empathy for the world, empathy for the other? And empathy is basically when we get out of ourselves, of our own ego, and we put ourselves in the other one's shoes. And we try to see life through the other's lens and others' perspectives. This is a very conscious medium because it will give you intelligence and holistic understanding, not only an understanding based on your interest, desire, and attachment, that is ego, but a more holistic, macro perspectival understanding of what is going on and how we can solve this conflict, because conflict will always be. We are always going to have differences. I am not saying that love will eradicate all differences and we'll never will fight again. We're going to fight. Sometimes, yeah, we're going to discuss, we're going to have some difference. But what if instead of giving a punch, we give empathy? What if instead of we push a button for a nuclear bomb to be launched, what if we sit and we meditate and we try to connect with the empathetic part of ourselves and try to understand the other's point of view? Well, that may be a conscious medium to prevent war. Another conscious medium may be compassion. The Buddhists, they have been for millennia now telling humanity, telling us, screaming at us that if we use compassion, we will solve every problem in the world. Now, in your mind, that seems kind of unreal. But why do you think that? Have you ever tried? Have you ever tried to become all compassion and see what happens then? Let me tell you what will happen. I am not 100% compassion yet, but I have worked a lot in compassion. And what I experience is that I am a more peaceful man, more empathetic, more lovable, more grounded, more wise. Because when I have compassion, I am taking a serious consideration for the pain of others, and I am trying to alleviate that pain through my conscious and lovable actions. Now, I don't need to relieve the pain. That is trying to be the savior, right? No, it's not the same. I don't need to do it, but I do it anyways because my compassion is so strong. The love is so strong that I cannot help myself to help. I could not help myself to not do this episode because this episode is formed by compassion. Compassion for the Ukrainian people, compassion for the African people that are dying every day, from the Israeli people that is dying in their own wars with other countries. From this compassion, I am doing this. From compassion, you can do great things. Compassion is a conscious tool to prevent war. Communication is another tool for preventing war. Decentralization of power is another tool to prevent war. When we have definite hierarchies, war will happen because this is basically a reflection of Game of Thrones. Everyone will want to be in the top of the hierarchy. So obvious. Now, can we eradicate hierarchies? I don't think so. Hierarchies are very well established in nature. Like everything tends to organize itself in a hierarchy. Now, that doesn't mean that our hierarchies can be more well distributed in power, more fair distributed in power. And with that um, condition, we may have a better world and we can prevent war. But if the hierarchy is not well distributed and some people are clearly losing and some others are clearly winning, that is an unconscious tool for war. Other mediums that we can use, other conscious mediums, is art. Art is basically the whole opposite of war. Because in war, you destroy. With art, you create. So imagine a world in which we do more art instead of fighting. How much beautiful that world will be. Crazy beautiful, huh? So do more art. I always recommend my students in the Mastermind Podcast Challenge that you need to be doing art. You need to be creating something every day. You need to be working in a specific artistic pursuit every day of your life because that will progress your personality, that will stretch your personality to a more advanced state. But also, now I recommend you use your artistic powers to create pieces of love, pieces of compassion, pieces of art that promotes these sophisticated values because maybe your art will revolutionize some consciousness. That is what art do, revolutionize consciousness. So this is my art. Podcasting is one of my arts, and I am taking the responsibility to do this. You do the same with your own art. Don't criticize the war. Well, criticize it if you want, but also make art that can change war dynamics. That is a more conscious medium to prevent a war. Meditation, yoga, another preventive mediums. Just imagine a country that is almost about to fight a war and they suddenly decide, okay, we are not going to invade. We are just going to close our borders and no one in the country is allowed to work. No one in the country is allowed to do anything just to meditate for the next 30 days. Like very similar to what happened with the pandemic, that we were like in a lockdown meditate not med I was meditating, but we were in a lockdown. Everyone was doing whatever in their own homes. So imagine a country that do that kind of thing, but urge their people to meditate and to sophisticate the collective consciousness through yoga And then they they get together again and they decide, okay, what we are going to do. What will happen is that if they were angry, frustrated, and about to engage in a war due to those emotions, after 30 days of continuous meditation and introspection and contemplation, they will be so advanced, probably, or at least they will be so more aware that they will express their love in a more conscious way. They will not go to war based on an immature love. They will maybe communicate again, or they will practice more empathy or more kindness or more compassion, or they will do a collective art, or they will do something more conscious than bombing or destroying another man or woman in other land. So I know that it will be difficult for a country to do this, but this is not impossible, folks. We can develop more spiritual civilizations based on love and acceptance, not based on ego and paradigms and dogma and what is true versus what is not true, and morality as an instrument of controlling the masses and the public opinion. That is a very unconscious way to do this. So we can continue on forever with conscious tools, but I think that you get the point. The unconscious tool, the unconscious one, is one that uses immature love to find its means or to conquer its means. The conscious tools is the ones that use mature love or aware love or love with capital L, the love that is universal, the love that is omnipresent, the love that is the uniting factor metaphysically in the universe, the substance of the universe, the fabric of reality. And in the conscious tools, they use that love to spread more of it, more love, more acceptance, more union, more peace, more compassion, more expression, more equality, more power distribution, less poverty, more wealth, more abundance, more education. Education, let's talk about it a little bit. Is this an unconscious or conscious tool for war? What do you think? The current education of today. It is an unconscious or conscious tool for war? What do you think? Well, I think that is a very unconscious tool for war right now because the education in most countries sucks. And we all know this. We don't talk about love in our education systems. We don't talk about compassion, kindness, empathy, communication, understanding, spirituality, mysticism, unification, unus mundus, transcendent reality, yoga. We don't talk about these things. We only talk about the unconscious tools. We talk about economy, we talk about war, we talk about politics, we talk about international relationships, we talk about the World War II, the World War One, this crazy guy here, this crazy guy there. We talk about communist, capitalist, socialist, new world order, current world order. The religious aspect is very dogmatic. If you are in a country like in an Islamic country, Allah is the only one, and blah 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 blah, and other ones are unfaithful people that deserve to die or whatever, to be slave of Allah. So it's a very unconscious education that we have. systematically in our society. So it's not surprise that we are fighting forever if in our root of the education system we are broken as hell. So how we can aspire to be sophisticated in the top part of the system if in the bottom or in the base part, in the most fundamental part, we are fucked. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So if you want to fix war, let's start by fixing education. Let's start by fixing the brains that will, one, use love immaturely to conduct war, or two, use love maturely to prevent war and to expand consciousness in the whole universe and union and merging and one with God, with the all, with the infinite compassion, with the infinite bliss of being human and having this mesmerizing experience here right now, together as one. My gosh. Why is so difficult to understand this? I know it's difficult to implement this. I know that in the practical manners of this is a huge challenge. But you know what is a more huge challenge than implementing these ideas? To survive a nuclear war. That is a more huge challenge for us. As Einstein said, I don't know what weapons will be used in the World War III, but in the World War IV will be sticks and stones because it will be so devastating. The nuclear war or the World War World War III will be so devastating. That is a huge challenge to survive a post-apocalyptic world that is all contaminated by radiation, with the 95% of the world population gone, only people surviving in bunkers, eating Chef Boyardee for 30, 40 years. That is a heck of a challenge, dude. Do you prefer that challenge, or do you prefer the challenge of reinventing the infrastructure of our education systems to become more whole, to become more loving, to become more conscious, and that impacting the further societal dynamics that will determine the fate of our humankind? What is a better challenge? What do you think, boy? What do you think? So, what is the resolution? The real resolution of war. It is not the conquer of the territory. It is not the submission of a country into another one. It is not the establishment of a new world order with a top hierarchy kind of individual or group in the top, saying this is this and this is that. And no one can say otherwise. This is not the real resolution. The real resolution of war is an understanding and a change of consciousness and mind of what is love and how we are loved and how we can conduct ourselves through love. Because when I say love, you think about that romantic type of love. No, that is not the love that I'm just referring here. I'm referring to love as the ultimate principle of reality. And in the most archaic aspect of the spectrum of love, we have war and we have sex and we have all of those aggressive things that we can conduct when we are self absorbed, when we are loving ourselves so much that we cannot love anyone else. The love is very centralized in the negative part of the spectrum. But what I am talking about is to decentralize that love into a universal love, a love that merged with everything in the universe, and also with that love your identity will follow, because you only can love so much mediated through your identity. If your identity is very reduced, you can love only reduced. You can love very little, because you cannot love more than you are. So if you want to love more, you need to become more. You need to be more. So by being the universe, you can love the entire universe, and you can conduct operation, political operations, social operations, humanitarian operations based on love, based on mature companionship, based on mature society, based on mature art, culture, civilization. And that is the real resolution of war. No war. That is the real resolution of war. No war. Because we are loving ourselves and each other exactly the same. And the whole universe, and the animals, and the plants, and the ecological structures. Because then, let's say that we apply this idea and now we are all loving each other as humans, but then we conduct war on animals and we start killing animals because we need to, express our rage with something, or we start, conquering other planets with other lives. So let's suppose that we become an interplanetary species, as we are going to become in the next maybe 100 years, and maybe sooner, but let's say 100 years, like more than Mars, like couple of planets at least. um, and then we finally realize that there's another beings in the universe, like aliens, stuff like that. But we love each other, right? Because we finally reach the state of consciousness, of love consciousness, in a mature love. And then we say, okay, we love each other. We haven't engaged in any human war in the last 50 years, but let's conquer other human or other aliens, other beings. Let's conquer them. And we are loving each other, but we are conquering aliens. Is that universal love? No. If we are really want to love, we need to love everything. We need to love the animals, the plant, the ecology, and aliens if they exist. We cannot engage in those type of wars. Now, if they invade us, well, that is another story. And I think that this is the final idea that I will transmit in this podcast. And it's an idea that this must be in place for this whole philosophical building to work. For this to become pragmatical, everyone needs to do it. You cannot have 90% of the groups doing this, and 1% or maybe 10% or 5% of the groups not engaging in this type of mature love. But because what will happen is that that group that is not doing this kind of work will fall into the temptation to will fall into the temptation of reaching to the top of the hierarchy and establishing a new world order. And if the other 90% of the people were just loving and meditating, they were not developing, warfare armor, warfare weapons, or warfare strategies. They will be easily conquered. And then the cycle repeat itself. And this is the real problem. The real problem is how we can trust each other that we are going to sustain this mindset forever. How we can trust. So the real problem, besides love and the immature way that we are expressing love, the real problem also is trust. How we can trust each other. And that is a good reflection that I want you to have. Because maybe you say, okay, Derek, that makes a lot of sense. What you have told us is so enlightened, man. Oh my gosh, this should be the most vital podcast in the world. Oh my gosh. And I will do it. And I will create art, Derek, that also express this idea of love, of humanity as one. I will do all of these things, but what guarantee that my neighbor will love me? And Sigmund Freud, in a very good book that he wrote, is called Civilization and its Discontent. I recommend you to read that. Civilization and its Discontent. This is one of the most fundamental questions of that book, is how we can trust our neighbor. And for that, we need another episode. But yeah, for really for to this for for this to really work, we all need to do it. So the change in consciousness must be global and equal across humans, and hopefully across the whole universe, because then we can argue, okay, but why, if we all agree to this, and we establish policies, and we establish international relationships and agreements to maintain this love, mature love state in humanity, and we finally maintain peace. But what if aliens come? What we do? We let aliens conquer us without fighting? Well, not exactly, you know. And that is now I'm thinking about it. I haven't think about that. But maybe this is, these episodes never are final. These are just reflections, my current work, the way that I express some ideas to try to, organize them, and then I produce them in a more complete product in my courses or in books. So yeah, I don't have all the answers, but my provisional answer is that, well, let's focus first on us, and then we focus on aliens. All right. Let's focus first on us, because aliens, they are not going to extinct us, at least for now. They are not here. We don't know if they're here or not, but they are not here right now. Here right now is a threat of a nuclear war. That is real. That is real. Real right now is that Ukrainian people, civilians are dying. That is real. So let's focus on that, and then we can focus on other objects. All right, my friend. So let's wrap this off. Leave, please, a comment. What are your thoughts about it, about this podcast? What do you think are other conscious tools that we can use to prevent war? And I just want you to bring your opinion about everything that I said. You can defer. It's all about communication and love. So you can defer, you can argue, you can prove your point. But remember, at the end of the day, what we are trying to do here is uniting humanity, uniting consciousness. So if you're gonna leave a comment that is hating in everything, just okay, you can do it. But notice, is that your ego? Is that your immature love? What is writing, or is your conscious, meditative, introspective kind of mindset that is writing? Just a reflection. But I will be reading your opinion, and I will be answering you back. All right. Also remember that you can support this podcast on Patreon. This podcast is free, and as you know, is bringing hell of ideas to the world, ideas that are not talked about almost anywhere else, and it's doing this all for free, and it will stay like this. So if you want to support us with only $5 per month, well, go to Patreon, and there you can support us, and I will be infinitely grateful for that. Also, you will receive special benefits. So go to the link below, click on where it says Patreon, and support us. And finally, I want to say that yes, is everything start with self-love. So it's not an inherent or native bad thing to self-love, to love yourself. to love your country, to love your own group. It is not a bad thing. What is a bad thing is to not expand that love into a universal love, not stretching yourself, not stretching your boundaries. And that is the direct challenge that I have for you, to stretch your boundaries. And all start by self love. I have a course that is called the Self Love Masterclass, that it will teach you everything that you need to know to love yourself forever. Basically, to live with yourself with a good relationship, to be happy with you, to have peace, to respect yourself, to have empathy, to connect with your values, and at the end of the day, to live an epic life. In that course that you can go in, you can go to derekisrael.com. The link is in the description below. You can go to that course and take that course. But also, what you will learn in the final uh, part of the course is to transform that self love into the universal love. So, if you want to apply what you learn here more viscerally, if you want to really experience this with guided meditations, with a ebook, with lessons about forgiveness, compassion, self-love, empathy, life purpose, what more is in that course? Um, Universal love, lovable habits. If you want to learn everything to love yourself and the universe, then go to that course. And for me, will be an honor to teach you more how you can become more conscious, how you can become a better human being, and more importantly, how you can manifest a more mature love in the world. Thank you, and I see you in yourself/universal